What's up, everyone? This is 7 Octoberz with my co-host Melly.
What up, everyone?
And this is another episode of the Heartful Truth. This is season 4, episode 6. And today we have another dope guest. She is Kathy Barron. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of Woman Who Podcast magazine. And she also hosts a podcast herself called Woman Who Sarcast. And she, Woman Who Podcast magazine celebrates women that are independent podcasters from all over the world, which is kind of what how I came across her page on Instagram. And then from there, I just really love what she was doing. Then me and Melly, we started following her on the Heartful Truth. Yeah. And then we were even featured on the magazine, which we're really grateful and thankful for. And so we've been wanting to have her on the podcast. It was going to happen in person, but then it didn't go that way. So we're doing virtual today, but hopefully we will meet soon. So without further ado, let me bring on Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hello, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I wish I was down in San Diego.
I know. Next time you'll have to come in person.
Definitely have to make a road trip. I'm not that far. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, so
yeah,
just
yeah.
Quick shot.
Or we'll meet halfway.
Yeah, Ventura or something.
Yeah.
And I'll pass it on to you to start the conversation.
Alrighty. So today the topic will be about kind of women supporting women, and we're gonna dive in from the top and go in. So just to start off a little bit.
I got my water rings. I got my life jacket. I'm ready.
To start off, what would you say your childhood was like?
Oh boy. See, this is why you didn't give me the questions beforehand, because you wanted to be like, put me on the spot with these questions. I see how you guys are. My childhood, let's see, I'm the youngest of 6. So if that tells you anything right there, I was definitely the youngest, but they probably would all say that I was my mom's favorite, because
I feel you on that.
As youngest always gets picked on, But I mean, I grew up in New York State in a really small town, like 5,000 people up in the Adirondack Mountains. And, it was pretty chill. I'm Gen X. So basically our parents were like, go outside, don't bug us, come back when it's dark kind of thing. So we're drinking water from the water hose. It tastes like plastic. We're riding our bikes and, just kind of mulling around town. Making mischief. I think for the most part, it was a good childhood. To be honest, I don't really remember much. I'll get flashes every once in a while, but my parents did the best they could with 6 kids in a small town.
Oh, wow.
And, it was fun. I think I had fun.
And since you were like 6 of you guys, was it like how many boys and how many girls, or what was your family dynamic?
4 girls and 2 boys.
Okay. And you're and as far as like what was like your relationship with all of them? Like, do you still talk to them, or is it like, what's the age gap, I guess you can say?
So the oldest is 12 years older than me. And so it goes boy, girl, boy, and the rest girls. And so the next oldest to me is 4 years old.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are you like close to any of them? Like, do you have like a close relationship?
I think, I talk to most of them, but I don't, like some of my friends' family, it's like they call each other every day, or they go out to lunch, once a week. They live on the East Coast, so we don't live in proximity of each other. But we do like talk on the phone or text, or, we have a relationship.
Yeah.
So, with my brothers, it's a little different, because they're much older. So, it's one of those where you're not talking to them, but you're also not like their best friend. That makes sense.
No, that makes sense. We can relate. Not with us, but with our other sister.
I was gonna say, you guys get along pretty well.
Yes. And when did you decide that you wanted to like pursue like a creative career? Like, how was that like journey? Because I know you also have like, your 9 to 5, but like obviously you love what you do here on your creative journey. So how did that all start? Like, where did the story start for you?
I really didn't find my creativity until I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. And that started with photography.
That's cool.
So I lived in the Bay Area. I moved into California in 87. So around the Bay Area, my parents lived or moved here from New York to Santa Maria. I don't know if you're familiar with that area because my
Yeah.
sister lived there at the time.
Yeah, I visited there before. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would drive down 101 and I would always see these farm workers in the fields, but you could never see their faces because they were just covered. Otherwise, I mean, they had to be covered
Yeah.
because of the sun. And it was always just very intriguing to me. So in Half Moon Bay, up here in the Bay Area, there's a community of migrant farm workers. So I really wanted to do like a black and white essay of that community because I felt like their voices needed to be heard. And so that's kind of how I got started with photography, black and white. And initially, it was just going to be like a photo essay. But then I moved to Portland in 2001 and just, there's a lot of farm workers up there in like Hillsboro with the blueberries and all the fruit, agricultural and stuff. And then I was like, the photographs really aren't going to do them justice because you're still not going to be able to hear their voices. And so I moved to Seattle to go to art school to study video production. So, because I had this huge idea of creating this documentary and following a migrant farm worker family. And, obviously that didn't happen. But that was my intent going to art school, was to learn video production, to create documentaries. Cool. So my focus in art school were still documentaries and short documentaries. And I've done a couple short films.
That's cool.
But that's always been, documentaries are like my favorite because I want to learn about other people and their lives and their experience. And it's just always very intriguing to me just to be part of that and to watch documentaries.
That's awesome.
I would never guess that. It's crazy how that connection too, because I've been wanting to do filmmaking, so I need to pick your brain now.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's collaborate. I'm all ready. I have equipment and the editing software, so I'm always looking for people to collaborate with. And the reason why the documentary didn't really happen was because I didn't really have people to collaborate with. And to be, and especially with the migrant farmer community, it's really hard to get in there. I mean, they have to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
And when I lived in Portland, I actually volunteered at a organization, Western Farm Workers Association, I think was the name of it, in Hillsboro. And we would go out to these different camps where people lived. And, it was very dire straits. I mean, and even with us walking into these camps, people were very leery of us because they had just gotten here from El Salvador. Like, these people are walking from these long distances. So, they don't really know who to trust. And so that was a very humbling experience for me. And there was one camp that we went to, and, these are very rustic and they're not good places for people to live. And these particular people were picking the blueberries. And one thing I'll never forget is we were talking to this woman, and her two little kids were like playing near the water fountain or something. And they were just laughing and having such a great time. And I'm thinking, this is like amazing to me that these two little kids, based on how, their living conditions and, their life, are just like laughing and just having a wonderful time playing in the water. So to me, that was, I don't know, I just learned a lot with that experience. And it just made me, for some reason, I'm drawn toward the migrant farmer community and that whole Hispanic community because I don't know if I was like in a previous life, I was part of that community, or, you know, in somewhere in my ancestry, you know, they were part of my life. But, you know, that group of people will always have a place.
Yeah, and now that you talk about it, it's kind of like creepy that like the connection, because we were just talking about that yesterday. Remember when we went to the Carlsbad strawberry fields, and we were talking about like how we're kind of blessed because like obviously our ancestors and some like our grandpa that passed away, he was like one of the from the Bracero program where like they came, they brought him over here to work, and that's how they kind of got work visas or whatever, and most of them stayed here because they came, you know, from Mexico to like California.
And then our dad too. Our dad at one point, he worked in the fields for a while, before he came here for a little bit, and before he started going to school and everything, his parents over there where he lived as well, he would help his dad pretty much like wake up super early in the morning and go to like they call it a cerro, but it's pretty much the mountains over there. He would take the food to his dad and everything pretty much while he was working in the fields, or pretty much. And
even he had aunts and uncles. Remember we went up north in California somewhere where like they still do it, I think, still. And it's like you said, it's like the harshest conditions too. Like there's really no days off. Like they're working like and like the fact that you said that story that about the kids, because I was like sometimes I even see myself taking things for granted. I'm like, imagine living it, but they're so happy and grateful. Like they don't even realize
the simplest things that they appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like a beautiful story that you shared. Yeah. And and like I said, I think you bringing that up, I'm like, I would love to help you if you want to do the documentary, because I'm like, we were just talking about that too.
I feel like how you said sometimes they kind of get like standoffish because they're like, oh, what are they going to ask me, or what do they want?
Exploit
me, and it's cool to kind of like speaking to them, like letting them know like why you're doing it and explaining to them
that we want to tell you want to tell their story, right? Because a lot of people just use
a story even now needs to be told. You know, I think there's just, you know, there's so much racism and hatred and misinformation still about that community. And, you know, it's just, you know, the undocumented, or, you know, how some people like to call illegal aliens, which I hate when they talk about them like that. It's like they're undocumented and they're here for a reason. And, you know, and it's not just, it's because, you know, we are a border with Mexico, but there are people from India, from other countries that are coming in as well. And I feel like that program that you talked about, that happened years ago because the government didn't have people to work in the fields, right? And so they created this program to allow people into the States. And so I feel like people need to be educated about how that got started.
And why people are here, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, they like, you know, like most of the people stayed here and created family. Like that's why we're here, I think, too. And like it goes just generation to generation. So
and you know, and they're not stealing American jobs.
Exactly. I was gonna just say that right now.
Pisses me off so much.
Nobody's gonna want to go and work in the fields. Like, let's be serious. I know I don't. I'm not gonna lie.
No American is gonna be like, hey, you know, I'll sign up for that.
Yeah. So
and it's unfortunate because it is hard work.
It is, and it's underappreciated for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, if you do need help, and now you have some people here.
Well, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to call you and be like, okay, when can we meet?
Let's do this.
We need to talk about this.
I'm down. I'm serious, because I've been wanting to do like a film. Like I want to do obviously horror and stuff like that, because that's like my number one love. But I've been wanting to do just any sort of filmmaking or anything that like I can learn more stuff on how to do the different tasks in film. So I've been trying to like submerge myself in that community here in San Diego.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. And then I think you had a question.
Yeah. And what do you say as a woman in podcasting, what has been the most challenging and the most rewarding?
Well, I'll start with the good stuff first. The most rewarding is meeting people like you. You know, even with podcasting, you know, the initial format that I had was just me and my co-host. And then I got into the format of interviewing people, because it kind of goes back to the documentary stuff where I want to learn from other people and talk to other people. And I really enjoy doing that. So just the amount of people that I've been able to meet, whereas if I didn't have the podcast, I wouldn't be meeting them. I'm sure you guys can relate to that.
Yes.
And, that's been amazing, like from all over the world. The internet, the interwebs is an amazing thing because we can talk to people all over the world, and, face to face, through the screen. So, just meeting such a wide variety and diverse amount of people has been amazing for me. And, the challenging part is just not getting the exposure, that, the men seem to be getting in podcasting. And, with anything like the corporate world is male dominated, there's a lot of industries that are male dominated, and podcasting is just one of those industries that are male dominated. I think more and more women are getting more exposure and more accolades. And that's one of the reasons why I started the magazine, is because I just did not see it out there that women were getting the accolades that they deserved. And, and these are podcasters that don't have a whole team behind them, because, I'm grateful that they're podcasting and they have a team behind them. But the women that I want to support are the ones like you and I, where we're doing everything ourselves. And we have a day job, and we have a family or kids or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. It's a lot of work. And for us to continually put out an episode after episode, it takes a lot. And that we continue to do it, because you've been doing this for how long?
I've been doing it for probably 4 years, but
with the
like
Heartful Truth, 2 years almost. Yeah.
2. Yeah. I mean, that's good. I've been doing it since 2018. So that's a little over 5 years.
Yeah.
And, we get burnt out, we get tired, and we're just like, ugh, do I have to do this again? Like before I met with you guys, I just edited my episode for this coming week. So, it's just a constant thing, and I do enjoy it for sure, but it's just a lot of work. And with the magazine, I want to be able to bring forth and lift up other women, independent podcasters that are, editing and recording episodes until 2 a.m. or, taking a day off so they can interview somebody for an episode. So, there's a lot of sacrifice. Yeah. There's a lot of sacrifice that's happening that needs to be noticed.
Very true.
Yeah. And as far as like, what inspired, as far as like the name, I mean, obviously it's like the name is pretty self-explanatory, but like, I guess my question is, what is your goal for you? Like, did it start off like, is it what it is now? Like your goal with Women Who Podcast, has it evolved, or is it still the same for you? Because you obviously mentioned that you want to support, independent women who podcast. But has that shifted at all from when you first started? Because at least, like, to give you a little bit of perspective, for me, when I started Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue, my other podcast, honestly, I just thought I was going to do movie reviews and album reviews, and that was it. And then it evolved into something completely different, which I'm like happy for. But like for you, is that something the same, similar situation, or is it's always stayed the same?
It's definitely evolved. Excuse me. But I think as far as like the idea, it's pretty much the same, because it's all about women. I'm not going to have a celebrity on the cover ever. So
good.
If you're a celebrity podcaster, don't bother calling me, because that's not the point. That wasn't the point of the whole mission and vision of the magazine. I'll give you a little sneak peek for January's issue, is that there's a woman that I found that's in the UK, and her podcast, she's anonymous. Like she doesn't want to be, because of I'm not going to give away too much, but because of the topic that she's covering, she's going to be anonymous. But I want her on the cover because of the topic that she's talking about is really crucial for people to learn about. And so we're going to probably have like an avatar on the cover of the magazine.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's kind of like kind of want to stretch myself in that and not be too controversial, but at least bring up those topics that need to be talked about and that are being talked about in the podcasting world. And that's really key. You know, when I select the podcasters to be featured in the magazine, there's thought behind it. It's like, okay, what are they bringing to the table? What are they talking about? Are they inspiring? Are they informing other people? Are they, you know, what is the whole idea behind their podcast? So, you know, the selection process is probably a little bit more criteria behind it than just randomly picking whoever. So eventually what I would like is, you know, the podcast community, the podcast magazine is like a community. Like we have a learning community once a month where you guys need to come to, because I haven't seen you there yet. Not that I'm pressuring or anything. But it's definitely a casual monthly gathering that we have for the featured podcasters to join. And there's no pressure, like I said. So there's that, and we can learn from each other and collaborate and meet each other. But ultimately, I would like to have some kind of scholarship and mentorship program for women that aren't really sure about starting a podcast because of finances, or, you know, they just are afraid to take that next step. And so the scholarship would kind of give them like the startup equipment and a mentor to kind of help them for like the first year, because that first year, as you probably know, is like the toughest, because I think we kind of get into it thinking, oh, this is no problem. And then like the 10th episode, you're like, what the heck did I just sign up for? And so we want to be able to, you know, mentor women and have someone they can call on and be like, you know, I'm really struggling, and, you know, have that support system, because I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. Because sometimes like other people don't really understand it. Like the people that are not like in the creative field or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Like there's times where I want to like talk to somebody about it, but it's only we can talk between each other, or like you or somebody else that does podcasts. Because other people, they're like, well, why do it? Right. Like if you're struggling with it, but it's like because we love it.
Like, where you're not even getting money off of it. They'll start questioning that. And it's like, well, it's because we enjoy doing it. It's just, it's not monetary, because if not, we would have, you know, like we wouldn't be doing. If it was for money, we would have quit a long time ago, because we're not making anything at all. It's but it's the connections that you meet, and like all the stuff that people don't, I guess, see. Or
it's like building for me, it was been building the relationships with, like you said, Kathy, that it's like getting to meet all these people all over the world that you might have never spoken to. Like I think we haven't tapped into that part just yet with the Heartful Truth, because we've been trying to do it like in person here in San Diego, because we have a lot of really cool people here in San Diego, but we do want to like pretty much go out and get more people from all over the world. And I like what you're doing with your magazine. And as far as like you said, obviously you have criteria. Like, do you have a day where you're like, I'm gonna like look up more new women podcaster, or what's like your thing? Like how do you like find these people? Like for you, because I found you. I think I don't even know what I was searching. I think it might have been like women podcast or something, and then you popped up. But
well, that's good. Google search is working, I guess.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So do you go down that rabbit hole, or how does it work for you to try to get these people?
Well, on the website, there's a get featured form that people can fill out.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I get them randomly throughout the months. And so I'll go through those first.
Okay.
And if nothing really like piques my interest, it all depends on my mood. So I have to really be careful, because if I'm in a bad mood, I don't pick anybody, because y'all suck, you know, kind of thing. Not really, just joking. But I also have to kind of like give them, because I want to be able to, and it's hard. It's like that gray area of, you know, there's that fine line between supporting women podcasters and supporting women podcasters. So, you know, I don't want to diss women podcasters that have a team behind them, but at the same time, you know, there's other women out there that don't have a team behind them that are making an impact on people's lives. So
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, like the independent people, we got to support.
And what do you think others can do to support women personally or creatively?
I think this may sound really strange, but I think it has to start with the parents. So, if your kids, whether it's a boy or a girl, want to be creative or want to go to art school or trade school, those need to be supported because, going to a 4-year university, I went to a 2-year business college only because I was not going into the military because my dad was like, either you go into the military or you pay for your own college. And I'm like, well, considering I can't take orders very well, the military is probably not the best path for me. So I ended up paying for a 2-year business college. But I think just being supportive with people's visions and ideas, and it doesn't always have to be about money, because creativity means so many things to so many people. And like you said, it's like podcasting isn't making us money, but it's the connections and the people that we've met that have been amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because now when I had an event, and a lot of these people was people that I met through some creative outlet, either they were on the podcast or whatever it is, and I think it eventually those relationships grow into more than what it was. So, and not saying I'm not gonna call it favors because I hate saying that word, but it's more like you built a community and now people want to help you.
They want to be there for you naturally.
Yeah. And so I think that's beautiful. We're seeing at least I've seen the fruition of those relationships now come to fruition. And I don't know if that's happened to you. Have you had anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I went to Podfest Expo, the conference.
I wanted to go to that. Yeah. How was that?
But it was March 2020. So it was a week before COVID kind of hit.
Yeah.
Which is a bit scary that I was at a conference with thousands of people a week before COVID. Luckily, nothing, happened. But that was a good experience. I don't know that I would go again, but for me, it's I've done it once. That's all I need. But I met a group of women at that conference, and I still talk to a couple of them on a regular basis. So, I think it's good to go to those conferences to kind of network and see what's out there. I'm hoping next year maybe hit Podcast Movement, because I haven't been to Podcast Movement, and I know there's a Podcast Evolutions. I don't know if it's always in LA, but I know the Podcast Movement was in Denver this last year.
There was one I think it was a Podcast Expo. I can't remember, but it was here in San Diego. I think it was this past year. I want to say it was San Diego. Maybe I could be wrong.
Last year, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Well, Podfest, I didn't even know. Podfest is always in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So, but they're expensive, and it's sometimes not easy to do that.
Yeah, or having to fly out and all that stuff, the hotel. So that's why what you're doing, because you're kind of starting a community with other podcasters,
Yeah.
Exactly. For people that might not be able to afford something that a trip like that. And where would you like to see women evolve in media, such as podcasting, for you in your future?
I would love to see women be the household name instead of he whose name won't be mentioned. Starts with a J, ends with an R. I would love to see women that podcast be on the forefront of everyone's mind and, be taken seriously. And I just want that just be a normal thing. I don't want it to be something that we have to work that hard for, because we are doing the work and we are making a difference in people's lives. And, just because we don't have a Spotify contract of $1 million or 10 million or whatever, doesn't mean that what we're doing isn't important, because, our voices matter just as much as anybody else's. So
I agree.
Yeah. And now we're going to dive into the side of mental health in our portion of the Heartful Truth. So it's kind of going to the other side. When would you say was your last time you cried, and why?
I saw this on one of your other episodes. I'm like, okay, I got to prepare myself for this question. So, crying is not something that I do very often. And usually when I cry, it's mostly out of frustration. I don't know if you guys experience that.
Yes.
But it's just the not the hopeless or helpless, but just, the frustration. And, these last couple of weeks have been definitely frustrating for me. So yeah, there's been a few times that I seem to cry in the shower. I don't know if you guys have a spot where it's like,
trying to think.
That would I don't have because I was like, I don't cry as often either, which I'm working on that because I know they say it's good, it's healthy to cry.
Yeah.
But I think like it's probably the shower, or just now I've been doing like for my grieving is just like shutting myself in my room and like listening to like either some sad song or something. And
I told her, I was like, try to listen, because she has hard times. I was like, try to listen to like a sad song that's gonna remind you, kind of to let out those emotions,
like Sarah McLachlan or something.
I think I was listening to "I'll Be Missing You," the Notorious B.I.G. one. With P. Diddy. That one got me crying.
Yeah, for me, it's like I used to, when I was younger, I would cry. I was like known as the crier. I would cry for everything. But then after things happen and I started growing, I started being embarrassed of crying in front of people, kind of not wanting to show those. So now it's like, unless it's like someone super close, I might let it out in front of you, but I'll try to like, in my room or somewhere where I guess no one will really see me crying. But I'm trying to get back into that, because I feel like, I think being in our last episode that we had is like being in touch with your emotions is a good thing. So I think if crying in front of someone is okay, but I think you have to get there, I guess, to feel comfortable around the environment you're in. And if you don't feel comfortable, then just, don't do it then. But I feel like it's okay if someone's crying in front of you.
Well, it's being vulnerable. I think that's what's hard sometimes, to be vulnerable and just be okay with just letting it go.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm working on that. I'm glad that you're the same way as me, because I'm trying to like be more vulnerable, but it is hard just because of the experiences. At least for me, I think that's what it is the experiences I've had where like I trust people and then it's not reciprocated.
And you might let out your vulnerability in different ways too. Like crying, it doesn't always people see as crying, but sometimes like through your art, like your podcasting, you're already kind of being vulnerable in that way. So sometimes you're letting out your emotions in that way or form.
Yeah.
Podcasting has changed me as a person too, and being able to be open, and because I'm a pretty private person, like I don't really share myself much as far as stories or whatever, unless I really know you. But it's not something that I do, and the podcast has definitely helped me share more of who I am.
Yeah, I think I could relate to that too. Yeah, same here. Like I've become more, because before I wasn't as open. I think I had like really like just relationships where it was just like pretty, sorry, there's like a freaking little mosquito. Like relationships that were just pretty much like I would hang out with you, have fun, whatever, but it wasn't like deep connections. And so now as I've gotten older, and I think like you said, podcasting has helped me too, like to be more open, building actually like stronger connections and deep conversations, because I've never been a fan of like small talk.
And I feel like when you share something, I think with the podcast we've had to like, sometimes someone will share something very meaningful and deep, so it kind of allows you to open up too, because you're like, they're sharing something deep, and it's like, oh well, like let me share this, because you're allowing me to be comfortable in front of you as well.
And what has been like your most difficult experience this year, and why, if you're willing to share?
That was a precursor to that, right?
Yeah, right.
Most difficult this year. Let's see. I don't know. I think, whether it's a personal relationship or professional, setting boundaries has always been hard for me. So, I've definitely been learning that on all aspects of my life, and learning how to set boundaries and how to like follow through with those. It's one thing to set a boundary, but it's another thing to follow through with it and, make sure that it's being respected. I don't really have a situation that was hard. I think, with the podcast, it's been a hard year because it's like in April, February, I was just really burnt out and was really deciding whether I wanted to continue the podcast or not. And took a couple months off, which definitely helped. And, since 2018, I've been doing them every week with maybe a couple weeks here and there, not doing it. And so when I came back from my hiatus this year, I decided to do seasons because then when it's going to end, right?
Yes.
So you only have so many episodes. So that was a little bit better this year, this season. So, and then I'll take a month off and then come back. So hopefully that will help me go on for a little longer. But I think, just with the creative projects, it's hard to continue doing them consistently and for long term and be able to sustain it for long term. And when you're doing it by yourself all the time, it does wear you down. And, not having that supportive team definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think also it's important, like which I've been learning too, is like taking time for yourself too, because as a creative, our minds are always going, and sometimes we do need to take a break. Because I sometimes have that because I'm juggling the kind of like two of them. I even told her like, man, can we take a break? But she's like obviously like, oh, let's go, let's do it, and which is good because she kind of brings me back to kind of like, okay, we got to do this. But then there's days where like, man, I'm like, can I take a break real quick? Because I have all these other things that I'm doing too. But then I'm kind of learning, okay, I got to do one thing at a time,
because you got all of these creative things you want to do, like right now. And that's another thing. It's like I am finishing a kid's book with, cool. I started a kid's book and then I introduced or asked someone to help me co-author it. And so, we're working on that because I've been wanting to do that for, 10 years. So, cool. It's just trying to cram everything in, before your last breath, before you die, you got to get all this stuff in there.
That's true. Yeah, I always feel like it's like I feel like Tupac. Like now I understand him where he feels like he had to drop all these music because it was like you never know when you're gonna die. So like for me, it's like that's how I feel. Like I think you live it to like, who knows if this is my last day, But also then we got to think about the other ways. Like we also got to slow down, which is one thing I'm working on.
Yeah.
And what would you say is one thing you do for your mental health?
Well, I stopped drinking a few years ago.
Congrats.
So that's thanks. So that's definitely helped. And it's definitely helped with my creativity as well. I also tried to like take walks, which I'm not that great at doing consistently, but walking, I have a bike. So sometimes I'll just bike around town or something. So I try to get outdoors and take those breaks and know that it's okay. I think with social media, it's really hard to not be on social media and because you have that pressure, whether it's self-imposed or not, that you always have to be, scrolling through or being on social media. So, as far as the magazine and being on social media or answering emails, it's like I treat it like a business. We're open Monday through Friday. The weekends, I don't necessarily do anything, whether it's the podcast or the magazine, because sometimes you just need a whole weekend just to kind of like live your life in other ways. So I just try to be conscious of and conscientious of how I spend my time.
That's good. And then this is usually like the last two questions are like the ones we ask the guest to kind of end our conversation here. And it went by so fast. I really love talking to you. So we got to do it at part 2 for sure. But what is one heartful truth about yourself that you might not like to hear, but that you're aware of?
That I'm stubborn. Yeah, I'm pretty stubborn.
Are you like working on it, you think, or is it something?
Well, I mean, what's there to work on, really? I mean,
that's how I feel with that.
Let's be real.
It's hard not to be stubborn.
And, my mother always warns my friends and my partners that, Catherine doesn't like to be told what to do, and it's true. She should know. that I don't like to be told what to do. I remember having a temper tantrum in our kitchen growing up. I think it was like 3 or 4 or something. So, yeah, I'm not planning on working on that. I've got other things to do.
I think we're both the same. We're the same too. That's why we bump heads sometimes.
Yes, but that's good that you're being true. What's it called? Truth on the Heartful Truth.
Well, I mean, if you know that about each other, then as long as you have that understanding, and that's what it is, right?
That's true. And what would you say? What does the Heartful Truth mean to you when you hear that phrase?
I feel the Heartful Truth is basically everything that you say and do comes from your heart. And, sometimes it's not easy to do that, especially if someone that, is being stubborn and, so a situation isn't necessarily going the way you had hoped. But, I do my best to come from the heart, whether it's kindness or compassion or empathy. And, as you get older, when you get to my age, you are less tolerant of things and you just don't have the patience for things. So I think it's just to remind myself to be patient and try to go with the flow as much as possible.
I feel like we have like a lot of commonalities. Yeah. I don't have patience either. I'm working on that. I'm actually working on that one, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And before we get out of here, like, is there anything that you want to like promote, shout out? I know we're going to share like in the description, like your website and all that, but this will drop, just to give you an idea, it'll drop around like the 21st of November. So close to Thanksgiving. So if you want to shout anything out.
No, I mean, if you're a woman podcaster or a woman who's thinking of podcasting, go to womenwhopodcastmag.com. There's a ton of information on the website. You can reach out to me at any time. If you are a podcaster already, like both of you, if there's anything I can do to support you in any way, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Women Who Podcast Magazine. I don't know why I had such a long Instagram account, but I should have thought about that through. But yeah, I'm here to support women podcasters. And if anybody wants to be on my podcast, reach out, we can make it happen. And we'll definitely, you and the 3 of us will definitely have to get together to talk about this documentary.
Yes. Yeah, we do have to. And yeah, we obviously want to thank you for your time and also again for having us featured on your magazine. That was like really beautiful, like to see. And a shout out to my guy. I blanked out on her name. What's her name? The one that wrote the article. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I'm so sorry if you're listening.
Yeah, she was awesome too.
She was awesome, and we thank her. I think she does Glistening Particles is her podcast.
Oh right, Jane.
There we go.
Shout out to her for doing that interview and the write up. It was really beautiful. Yes. But yeah, we thank you for being on, for speaking your heartful truth. Yes. And then, I don't know if you want to say some words before.
Just want to say thank you as well. Thank you for having us on your magazine, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor and a blast to be here with you guys and to chat it up. And I'm looking forward to part 2.
Alrighty. Yes. Well, everybody, thank you.
It's going to be like the Fast and Furious. We do part 2 and then 4, 5, 6, 7.
I know you have, we all have so many things going on. You have like Women Who Are Sarcastic. I don't know if you don't, I don't think you have guests on there, but I'm down to be on there because I am sarcastic.
Right.
So
I usually do have guests, so let's do it.
But yeah, thank you so much. And for everybody tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. Go ahead and follow Kathy on Women Who Podcast Magazine on Instagram, also Women Who Sarcast. And yeah, follow us at The Heartful Truth. Subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode.
Peace.